Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Flywoo Firefly 1S FR, which stands for Freestyle, Nano Baby Quad version 1.2 Runcam Thumb Edition. Not to be confused by the three other versions of this quad, which either come with a dead cat frame or bi-blades and lower kV motors. This is the True X edition with 802.4 19,500 kV motors and 40mm tri-blade props, which you get a spare set of. The Runcam Thumb comes as it is with all of its contents apart from its box, and they also ship it with an ND16 filter, which at the time, if you bought the thumb from Runcam, you had to buy that separately, but I hear that they are now rightly including it in their package as well because it's massively important. It also comes pre-wired to power the Runcam Thumb from the all-in-one board. You can get it as a PNP, ELRS, TBS, or an FrSky SPI receiver, but definitely don't get that one because it's got really poor range. This is the ELRS version, and I struggled at first because there is no information on what receiver they have used. After sliding it out of the TPU holder and comparing it to Flywoo's own receivers, this one came with their EL24E ceramic type antenna receiver, which I had no problems flashing the latest version of ELRS to, as it's listed in the ELRS configurator. But with no instructions, I wasn't even aware that Flywoo made ELRS receivers, so that created a bit of a roadblock for about 40 minutes. It comes shipped with a GMB27 connector, but due to there being zero stock in the UK of GMB27 batteries, I swapped it out for one of the light XT30 connectors because the difference in weight is something like half a gram. They do give you a GMB27 to PH2 connector, but that's really wishful thinking because you're not going to get any kind of usable performance from that while carrying the Runcam Thumb. They recommend a 350 to 450 mAh 1S LiPo, but if you want more than a 2-minute flight time, then I strongly suggest that you use a 650 mAh LiPo, which will give you around a 3-minute flight time or a 7 to 8-minute flight time without the thumb camera. Be warned though, the thicker 650 mAh LiPos will stretch the TPU holder underneath to the point where a 450 mAh 1S LiPo will just keep sliding out. But my recommendation is to not use a 450 mAh LiPo, at least with the Runcam Thumb edition. It weighs 25 grams without the Runcam and then 35 grams with the Runcam Thumb, and 51 grams with a 650 mAh LiPo. As for the rest, I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, but the camera is their own brand 16:9 micro CMOS camera, and the board is the Goku 5-in-1 F4 flight controller flashed with Betaflight 4.2.8. So if you want to use ELRS version 2, then you will need to flash a release candidate of Betaflight 4.3. They've come up with their own custom PIDs, and they work really well. It's got 5A BL Heli-S ESCs with RPM filtering enabled, with an impressive 250 milliwatt VTX, although the linear antenna does get blocked by the Runcam Thumb's mount and camera if you are using it. But with a 3-minute flight time, it's not exactly a long-range model. So my advice would be to turn down the power of the VTX to say 50 or 100 milliwatt, which will increase the flight time just slightly, and it'll also reduce video brownouts, which will happen when carrying the thumb camera, giving it full throttle towards the end of the battery. Now, funnily enough, this model is perfect for the Runcam Thumb because it needs to be very loosely soft mounted, which it is, and unless the sun has set, you need to keep that ND16 filter on there, otherwise you will get a crazy amount of rolling shutter jello. But this is where I'm kind of torn, because the Runcam Thumb is meant to be a cheap budget camera, but it's expensive in this combination. And it's a far from perfect camera. You need to make sure that you update to the latest firmware, and even then you need to go in and edit a config file so that it records the correct data for Gyroflow. And Gyroflow is a free open source video stabilization project. You need to put some strong tape on the SD card cover, because anything more than breathing on it will cause it to fall off. And the SD card is just tension fitted. So if the cover comes off, there's a good chance that you will lose your SD card at the same time. It only accepts up to 32 gigabyte micro SD card, so make sure that you get that right. Amazingly though, if you disconnect the battery without stopping the recording, you just lose around about a second of the footage. Something strange did happen though. In one instance, for some reason it didn't record any audio, but it did save the video. If you get to unplug the connector and attempt to remove the camera from the mount, then you stand a good chance at pulling the connector off the back of the camera, just like the GoPro lights or naked GoPros. So my advice is to leave it in place once you have updated the firmware and config file, and then just use the USB Type-C to retrieve your files, bearing in mind that the quad has to be powered up from the battery in order to do that. Now when it comes to Gyroflow, I started making a tutorial on how to get the best out of the Runcam Thumb camera. But halfway through, they did a major update of the Gyroflow software. So in short, you have to go against Gyroflow's number of sync points, which is around 2 or 3, because the gyro data of the Runcam goes out of sync all of the time. So basically ignore its auto syncing function and add them manually. Sometimes adding one will make it worse, and other times it will make it better, and you will have to play around with it until you get decent results. And this is where I'm kind of torn again with the camera, because it's cheap and it lends itself to beginners, but you're probably looking at maybe 40 minutes of playing around in Gyroflow before you get anything close to the results of, say, a Cadex Peanut, which, you know, it just does it by the press of a button. The Runcam config files let you change the parameters such as exposure and color, but I found that messing around with the LUT settings in post-production, whether that be DaVinci Resolve, I personally use Premiere Pro, produces much better results. Anyway, let's take it out to the field. Now a word on the sponsor of this video. You might have noticed that I've not been uploading as many videos on the channel recently, and one of the reasons is I signed up to Skillshare. Because let's face it, the last couple of years have left many of us in need of a rethink. And there's a lot of awesome projects I've been working on in the background that I can't wait to show you. But they wouldn't have been possible without Skillshare. There's a huge library covering all sorts of subjects, but my favorite course is the Fusion 360 complete course by Michael Freeman, which teaches you everything that you need to know about making your own 3D printable components. Skillshare is ad-free and only costs $10 a month. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the video description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks to Skillshare for also sponsoring this video. Okay, let's go for a line of sight flight with this guy. Now, did you see that front prop not start up straight away? So just like when I reviewed the first version of this model, it's basically the ramp up power, and with this, you know, just being 1S and us asking a lot from it, it's nothing to worry about. If it doesn't ever actually start to move, you can give it a flick with your finger. I've got the thumb on here, and it's recording, you know, because that's what you'd do if you'd have the thumb on there. And I'm in angle mode, and out of the box it did have a little bit of drift. Now I had it going in the house just to make sure, you know, that it armed and everything, and it was drifting forward, but it was drifting consistently. So it just ended up being the accelerometer calibration. So that's all that was needed. Anyways, with this 650 milliamp hour 1S LiPo and the Runcam thumb, let's check out the punch. It's not bad, you know. It's not bad. Gosh, can hardly see the thing. Let's take it into acro mode. It does acro, man. You just have to make sure that, you know, give yourself enough headroom to recover, and we have no problems. It feels smooth, man. It feels smooth as anything, and it's not the calmest of days today. It's not flat, calm wind, so yeah, it always amazes me. I don't know how well this is going to come out on the video because it is so small. It's really hard to show on camera how small this thing is. But, you know, if you imagine a 5-inch prop, smaller than a 5-inch prop. Let's look at that. It's behaving perfect. So, yeah, it'd be a bit of a monster without that thumb camera on top. So let's see how it behaves. Look at those props all sort of firing up when they want to. Without the thumb camera, instantly I'm like, the throttle hover position is like 20% rather than 50%. Let's go for the punch. Oh wow. Oh yeah, this could be a little nice angry thing to fly without the thumb camera. Wow, amazing. Amazing. We're so lucky. You know, I've been doing this for 30 something years. And it's really difficult speaking to people who are complaining about things who've been in the hobby for like 6 months. And, oh, it's rubbish, it doesn't do this, doesn't do that. You have no idea. You have no idea how good things are. A 1S model that can carry an HD camera that we can stabilize. It's got a full working on-screen display. You might not be able to hear the wind, but it's actually handling it pretty well. Had to wrap that thumb camera cable so that it doesn't get caught in the props. Keep it close, remember to keep it close. It doesn't matter. I'm keeping it close and I can't see it with my own eyes, so what the GoPro is going to pick up, you know, all this colour here in the ground. It's not going to mix well with the colour of this model. Alrighty, so here we are with a 650 milliamp hour 1S battery and the thumb camera. Hopefully getting some nice, lovely, smooth shots with the thumb camera. The sun is out. I've got the ND16 filter, and yeah, I've done a complete 180 when it comes to this thumb camera now that they have sorted out the issues. I tend to find this with Runcam and diatone, and well, companies in general, really, they're so eager to get the product released that it's not actually ready. But majorly impressed with the performance of the thumb camera and Gyroflow with the right settings. So moving on to the FPV camera of the Firefly, 16:9 again, just like the previous version, and also some of the lens in shot to the left. Just where it's not being aligned correctly. It is a tiny camera, but the picture in general, pretty good. There's a little bit of interference that's probably not going to show on the DVR. It's really tiny, but I'm really picky. Not seeing any jello on the FPV camera. We are 2 minutes in and already down to 3.29 volts. There's also sort of like a moving black dot, which I don't know if is going to show on the DVR. A little bit of dust or something inside the camera. It's just moving around freely. But man, I'm surprised this thing flies really smooth with that thumb camera on the top. Of course, you know, we're not going to get a really decent flight time out of it, even though, you know, it's a very lightweight camera. Oh, yeah, we got a brownout there when I went up on the throttle. So it's possible that the Runcam thumb stopped recording at that point. What's interesting is, yeah, brownout again. Okay, coming for a landing. Yeah, what's interesting is that when the Runcam thumb cuts out, you don't lose the footage, but you do lose like a couple of seconds before it cuts out. So I have to see if that was the case here. I'm going to go and get the model. Runcam thumb still recording. So there you go, that is my review of the Flywoo Firefly 1S FR Nano Baby Quad Runcam Thumb Edition. I'll put a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment if you wish to buy one. There's also the thanks button if you found this video useful, and you can also sign up to my Patreon for extra content. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers!